Hey guys, we are back again. The wonderful Main Street Randyland YouTube channel, you lucky people, you. Another fun-filled story of the things in Randy's life. I mean, what could be better? So sit back and let's tell you the story of one Randy is not enough. So we kind of always knew that all the things that Randy did couldn't possibly be done by one Randy. I mean, how could you possibly be in all these places at one time? Particularly as I got into more and more things, there have to be additional Randys. Well, since we don't have any Oompa Loompas or any little elves hiding around somewhere, the only thing we could do was make duplicate Randys. So that started with Mr. Marvelous, which was helping me out at Lucky's Fascination when I started in Seaside, and he was built to run the Fascination game. But as I aspired to get into my amusements museum, I wanted to be able to tell the story of my life in the amusement business, because everything that I have is tied together by one common factor: me. My experiences growing up on the boardwalk, acquiring all these things, storing them, bringing them to locations, setting them up, the amount of time and effort nobody could possibly calculate. And nobody can understand this really because nobody else would ever consider doing this. Everybody else has some kind of life. They have a family, they have wives, they have girlfriends. I have no life. This is what I do. So I don't do anything else but this. So I had to create my own little army of helpers, at least to tell the stories. So it kind of goes back, interestingly enough, to when I was working at Walt Disney World. And somebody jokingly came into the meeting area where we were at for Main Street operations, and they made a comment. They said, oh, the new guidebooks are coming out next week, and there's going to be a new land in the guidebooks, and it's going to be Randyland. And everybody's looking at each other like, you know, is this for real or what? And I jumped on it because I knew it wasn't so, and I jumped on it and I says, oh, what a wonderful land that would be. I says, at every attraction, there'd be an audio animatronic Randy waiting to greet you, you know, and they're all looking at each other and, you know, they want to vomit. You know, the very idea of a Randy everywhere to them was just like shocking, because I was Mr. Personality everywhere I went, and a lot of the guys who worked with me didn't have that personality, so it kind of annoyed them if they were partnered with me that I would be shining and made them stand in the shadow, so they weren't really fond of the idea of a million Randys all around, because it would kind of make them look, you know, in dark corners and all these things. But oddly enough, Mr. Marvelous was the first rendition towards that goal with Randyland, which was coined the title right there and then at Disney World. And the idea of a million Randys was something I thought was just the best idea in the world. And it just came up on the spur of the moment. Well, economically, I'm not Disney, so I can't build a million audio animatronic Randys because of the cost factor. So I did the next best thing. I commandeered to have an army of Randy mannequins made so that they could be my, shall we say, surrogates in telling the story of the life of Randy in Randyland and the amusement business. So it started with contacting a mannequin manufacturer who was here in the United States, and I'm sure he was well connected in China because he was having a lot of mannequins made at that time in China because he was doing things very cost effectively. And as much as I would always like to buy American if possible, sometimes you have to compromise your integrities, shall we say, and have things done that maybe you really wouldn't want to do them that way because of being able to afford to do it. So to further the goal of the dreams and the aspirations of creating Randyland, I contracted with him to have an army of Randys made, which ultimately he had made in China in order to come up with a cost factor that was even somewhat realistic within my budget in order to do. So it started first with a bunch of pictures where they had to have pictures of me from all angles, and I wanted them to be a little bit younger Randy, because I don't want to be necessarily remembered as old Randy, so we have to have them a little bit younger pictures. And they were sent to their sculptors and their artists in China, who first started with some clay renditions, and they would actually carve me in clay beautifully, just like a Disney artist would do. And that's where they'd start with a clay bust. And then they would send me several images from all sides for my opinions and my approvals. And I told them, I says, I don't think they have enough hair, because Randy always had big hair. So I was having them add more clay to make more hair on the things. And finally, they came up with a model that I felt was quite depicting of the Randy in his proper, shall we say, state and form. And they sent me the first head as a sample, and I thought it was fine. It was dandy. It even had eyelashes and beautiful eyes, just like the real Randy. And then it was on to placing the order. So I think my first order was 100 full-size Randys, and had to wait, quite a while for them to get made and get shipped, because the company that they were using was actually not a large company. They were making, I think, 1 or 2 Randys a day. So you're waiting 50 days minimum for them to make them, and then they got to, send them and all that stuff. There's drying time involved. Then they have artists who paint them and put eyelashes on them and do the eyes and all that stuff. It's quite intricate. They're a quality piece. So eventually, the truck pulls up out here, and it's filled, the tractor trailer filled with boxes of Randy mannequins that have to be then dragged out of the truck and dragged across the sidewalk and into the store. And here I am, and then I'm spending the next day after day assembling Randy mannequins, putting the legs on, and they're weird. Mannequins are weird. You have to get them in a slot, then you got to twist, it kind of locks, so that you can take the legs off and the arms off in order to dress them, because obviously legs and arms of mannequins don't move. They're not flexible. They're made of a fiberglass. And eventually the first 100 Randy mannequins were fine and dandy. Now, of course, you can't stop at a mere 100 Randy mannequins. So I said, well, we have to have more Randy mannequins made, because I said, suppose I want to have Randy mannequins who are standing. Mannequins are made either standers or, in poses, and that's what they do. That's the way they're made. So next was to have a few different styles of standing Randy mannequins, and then you had to have your sitting Randy mannequins, because I figured, you can't have all the Randys standing all around, and particularly when I display my fascination games someday, because I have 7 systems of fascination, and of course the Kentucky Derby in addition to that, and this is all depicted with a bunch of people playing. So I'm never really going to operate 7 fascinations at the same time if I ever get them under one roof. So I want to take maybe particularly like my original tables from the old Kessel fascination from 1938, maybe I would set that up as a static display and have a bunch of Randy mannequins playing fascination. So they have to be seated at the chairs. So I had to have a lot of sitting Randy mannequins made. Order more mannequins, and here they come, and more approvals and more trucks full of boxes. And oddly enough, the sitting Randy mannequins come in a larger size box than the standing Randy mannequins, because of the curvature with the legs that come out this way, and they couldn't get in the box. So it took up more space and more shipping fees and dragging them in. And I had piles and piles of cardboard outside on the sidewalk for recycle day. People are coming over getting my boxes, because you go buy a box, you know how much a box costs, and packing material. It's all wrapped up with foam and bubble wrap, and they really did a fine job. So Randy mannequins galore, and I had a bunch of extra Randy heads made, because in the future, I might want to have a different posed Randy, and I could get a standard stock mannequin and chop its head off and have the Randy mannequin head put on instead. So it would become a Randy mannequin, because there's nothing so special necessarily about the rest of the Randy mannequin, because it's going to be wearing clothes. You don't know what's going on. So, it's like a whole science of Randy mannequins. I mean, here we are doing an episode just on making Randy mannequins. So I don't know if anybody else has experience with having hundreds of mannequins made of themselves. Maybe they could, add something in the comments here. But until this point, I haven't really met anybody who's cloned themselves in mannequin form and had an army of 500 mannequins made in their replica image. So what can I tell you? I guess I'm a first in this pioneer of category. Let's show you a few Randy mannequins. Oh, we're standing right here next to a Randy mannequin. Now, you'll notice he's a little taller than I. Just a little bit. Now, it's not that I shrank, all right, but for whatever reason, the models that they used for the body frame were a little bit larger than life, and therefore he became a little larger. So here he is, Randy, smiling with the big smile. Look at those beautiful eyes, those beautiful baby blue eyes. Now, my eyes are a bluish green. All right, so some of the eyes on the Randy mannequins are a little more bluish green than others, which are a little blue. And I guess that has to do with whichever, Chinese artist was sitting there and actually painting and mixing the colors for the eyes. But those eyes really are beautiful. Look how they have a little shine to it, and those eyelashes and the eyebrows. They really did a fantastic job. The Randy is depicted just right. I mean, how better could it be? Can't you see the resemblance? So here he is. I had him with a big smile because, that's where you would always see me with a big smile. Of course, until you have to deal with local politics, and then it has to change a little bit. But this is Randy wearing 15 years of magic at Walt Disney World. And yes, I'm old enough to have been there when they were celebrating 15 years. 15 years, we're having a party. 15 years, gonna party all year long. I hated that song. But I was there for the 15 years celebration. Now, I did not wear this. This was actually from a parade for the dancers who paraded down the street wearing their 15 years insignias. Oh, wait, what do we have hiding up here? That's Wiederhosen Randy. Wiederhosen Randy, he is wearing his Skyway to Tomorrowland uniform. Now, the Skyway ran from Fantasyland to Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom. It also ran in reverse from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. But since he's in his Wiederhosen, he obviously has to be from the step-on to the Skyway at Fantasyland. And over in the far corner there, surrounded by a bunch of Randy heads, we have the World Band Randy. And he's wearing his World Band concert from Main Street, USA. And the Randy heads that are surrounding him are just extra Randy heads that, they're quite universal. They come in handy to place in many, many aspects to simply theme the area Randy. Why wouldn't you? Everything has to be themed Randy. So, of course, I have Randy heads in my organ up there. So they're in the pipes. I thought it would be a neat addition if I could somehow work some fog machines into those pipes, so when the organ plays, the smoke comes out from around the neck of the Randy head. Wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, it's so creative. You have to have these wonderful ideas. Randyland. Next to the big bass drum there with the funny face who's hitting himself with his sticks, we have It's a Small World Randy. Now, It's a Small World costumes, as many costumes in different areas have changed over the decades that they've been there. This is more of an original set because I go back to the early days. So, yes, the Small World Randy wore blue and white stripes on the top and his red pants with his white piping. And he also has a white Small World hat. But one downfall to the Randy mannequins with extra hair on the top is that hats will not fit on them because molded hair out of fiberglass does not contract. So you cannot put a hat on top of the Randy mannequins and have it look properly. So I figured the next group of mannequins that will be made will not have molded Randy hair. I'll have to go the extra step to have them bald and have Randy wigs made to go on top of the Randy mannequins so that they can be with hats and they can have hair below. And that's why people ask, why have I been saving my hair? Well, I've been saving my hair for a very, very long time. It started back when my parents were, with baby Randy, and they would save the hair from the haircuts, baby's curls. And every time we went to the barber in grade school, my mother would be picking up the hair from the barber's floor. So somewhere in the boxes of Randy nostalgia and the Randy archives, there are, I'm sure, hundreds of little paper bags filled with Randy hair from various haircuts over a lifetime. So in recent years, particularly like the last 20, I've been saving my hair in popcorn tubs, plastic tub you would get from caramel corn. Of course, you got to wash it out so you don't get sticky Randy hair. Sticky caramel corn on Randy hair, it wouldn't work too well. So you got to wash them out, dry them out, and then you keep your hair in the tubs in order to save for the future. You always have to plan ahead so that someday Randy mannequins can have wigs made of real Randy hair. What could be better? The authenticity of mannequins made to look like Randy wearing real Randy hair. What could be better? Of course, over here is a little more modern suit. That is a Tomorrowland costume, probably from the extraterrestrial ride in that area, judging by the raised shoulder pads on there. So I know it's definitely Tomorrowland, and that's probably where he's from. Now over here, we have Jungle Cruise Randy. And that is the original Jungle Cruise shirt and pants that they wore. They changed that a little bit into a deeper tan, I guess, to hide dirt. But this is the original way Jungle Cruise was. Of course, an original Jungle Cruise hat to go along with Jungle Cruise Randy. And next to him, oh, wait, above him, there is Prince Charming Randy. Oh my goodness, he was blending in with all the other characters of the animated show around him, but that is Prince Charming Randy. Of course, what could be more fitting than to have Randy depicted as Prince Charming? Now, a little bit lower over here, we have, of course, Fireman Randy. And this is the official shirt that the fire engine driver would wear going up and down Main Street, USA, driving the little fire engine. And I just have to take a little closer look here. Yes, look at that. They did not use the insignia Disney buttons on this. They're just plain gold domed buttons, which is very unusual, because if you look over at the next one, you'll see the buttons are Disney insignia buttons with the D on there. Now this guy who he's zooming in right now, that is a guest relations Randy. Now, guest relations Randy, of course, he's very dignified in his plaid vest and his blue, dress suit. And of course, he's wearing his official tour guide. And this Disney Randy is also an ambassador. He also has his Disney tie. You see his little D's in his Disney tie to go along with his official costume. Randy's sitting a little higher on the organ there. Now that is the way you would usually see me when I was over at Main Street, and he's wearing his official Main Street operations outfit there. Now, if you can zoom in on the buttons there, you'll see those are castles. And that is more the standard button that you would see back, at least in my era. You'll notice Golden Mickey, of course, standing on his pedestal directly next to Main Street Randy, sitting a little bit higher on the platform, holding his hand out in extension to show his appreciation to the Randy and his affirmity. Now, Gold Mickey came from one of the stores right there at Walt Disney World. He is actually laced in gold leaf. They only made a certain amount of them. I'm not exactly sure how many, but I acquired one. He had gotten a little damaged in one of the stores, and I loved him anyway, so I glued him back together, and here he is. And a little bit below, of course, we have two more Randys from Main Street. Now, a little bit out of theme here, we do not have ties on them. Yes, I have the ties someplace. The red one is supposed to have a red bow tie and red garters on his sleeves. I have them. I couldn't find them. I got them someplace. I'm sorry, I'll have to find them. We'll get them on there. The blue one will have a blue bow tie and blue garters on his sleeves. Of course, we have the straw hat, which was your typical costume hat for this type of costume on Main Street. However, you will notice this straw hat is perfectly in shape. All right? You'll see that there is a completely flat plane with your hat on top. They still use these straw hats on Main Street for Main Street operations. But when you look at them, you will see they look like Mortimer Snerd, because the guys who work and girls who work take the hats, they pull them down on their head, they bend the rims down so it's all bent down, almost like you're wearing a skull cap. The top is not flat. All right, they're domed up because they're just pushed down. And when they push that hat down on their head with this thing drooping down, it looks like Mortimer Snerd. Moving further down the line, we have, look at this. This is the Emporium Randy. Now, this is a little more modern than my era because they changed the Emporium costume to this type of situation. Originally, the Emporium would be wearing the Main Street stripes, just like Main Street Operations if they were driving an 03 vehicle, which stands for 1903 horseless carriage. We called them the 03. Technically, if you were assigned for an 03 for the day, you were supposed to be wearing stripes, but a lot of us would just wear our normal black and whites because they were universal to go anywhere on Main Street. The Emporium originally wore stripes, then they switched over to a plaid. A little bit further down the line, we have Fantasyland Randy. This is the original look for Fantasyland at Walt Disney World. Of course, this is all changed now today. You will not see this costume anywhere in the Magic Kingdom today, but I really like that look. The old same type of suspenders look with that kind of German, fantasy, because, everything in Germany is that whimsical fantasy of delight and wonder. So when you think German, you automatically think of fantasy and wonder. To the left here, we have Pirates of the Caribbean Randy. Now, Pirates of the Caribbean has a few different variations of pirate costumes, but this one was my favorite with the purple shirt and the maroon colored vest. Do we have special buttons? We have to check. They are special, but they're kind of like doubloons. The buttons are doubloons. A little bit to the left here, we have Tom Sawyer Island Randy. Now, this costume would also be seen in different areas in Frontierland, but it is supposed to be for Tom Sawyer Island with the synthetic patches on his shirt. These are not real patches. Stage costumes, they do this. They make things look like they're raggedy or whatever. This is not a ripped shirt with a patch. They sew patches on there to make it look like you're patched up to go along with the theme of Tom Sawyer Island. Right above him, the Grand Prix Raceway Randy. Look at that. And that's in your Goodyear jumpsuit, the famous blue with the yellow stripe, which, of course, now the Grand Prix Raceway, it's not even the same name anymore. It's Speedway, and it's not presented by Goodyear. I mean, they changed these things. But the original, of course, in my day, which everybody knew, was the Grand Prix Raceway with Goodyear as a sponsor. And I will always remember it that way because that's the way it started in my life. Directly next to Tom Sawyer Island Randy, we have another Frontierland Randy. This would typically be found more at the Country Bear Jamboree, although you could also find him working over at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in this type of costume. Some of these costumes in the areas can be a little bit interchangeable, even though they had their own particular looks. And I love the scarf around the Randy neck. And, again, very, very authentic in the way they design their costumes, which, you look at him, he's from Frontierland. I mean, where else would you see a costume like that? Standing in front of him, we have the Imagination Institute Randy. Now, he comes from Journey into Imagination, of course, with Figment. And this is not, I don't believe this is as early as the original Imagination, Journey into Imagination with Figment. It might have been the second generation, but he's in his lab coat. And of course, he's wearing his Project Crew badge. And he's dated in, it expires in 98. So again, that would go along with my theory that this was second generation because Epcot opened in 1982 and this is 98. So this would be second generation. But of course, the Imagination Institute with their embroidered, this beautifully embroidered insignia with the light bulb standing for I have an idea. Bing! Really amazing stuff. And lastly on this line, of course, can anybody guess where he's from? He is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror Randy. And he's wearing his Bellman's costume, his, of course, full-length Bellman's costume. They also come in a shorter version, because this is a heavy-duty one. He doesn't have his shoulder straps on. Again, you know, they have a name for this. The little icon things that go onto the shoulders, make you look military. I have them, I just don't know where they are at the minute, so of course he doesn't wear them at the moment. But you know, the Randys are all over, so we have to keep them in theme as best we can. And since Randy at Disney was a big part of my life, of course they have to be a big part of Randyland, because it's my life in the amusement business. What could be better? Well, we have plenty more Randy mannequins around my world, and I guess we'll show you some more on another episode. So we'll have to hold you there. You'll have to wait for them, because they're coming and they're waiting for you. Now, we're going to say, see you next time. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Thanks, guys. See you next time.